2021. Thanks for joining me for the Outlaw Pulpit. Now, I want to talk about the topic that I believe is important as a pastor of a church, and that is churches overthink way too much. Specifically, what I want to talk about is how they overthink the issue of discipleship, of how they overthink the issue of small groups. Now, let me explain that for a minute because I realize I'm stepping on sacred toes for those of us that like life groups and the phrase doing life together. I guess I'm just being completely honest here, and I'm going to shoot from the hip on this because I just got back from a fantastic time in Nashville where I stayed at Pastor Bob Beeman's house for a few days. I got there on a Friday, came home 2 days ago, which would be Monday, and it just drove the point that churches overthink how they do discipleship, how they do small groups and stuff like that. Number one, discipleship defined by a church these days really is not discipleship at all. It really isn't. Discipleship takes mentoring. Discipleship is diving in on the word. And quite honestly, what we flag as discipleship, it's a loose adaptation of it at the very best, like a lot of things in church. Worship. I'm just saying. Don't send a hate mail over. But the fact is that churches overthink the way they do things in the form of discipleship and small group studies because there are always so many of them, and I'll never broad stroke it, but so many churches overthink this because they're always looking for the latest and greatest Bible study to go through, the latest and greatest discipleship series to go through. Staff spend many hours slaving over how their small groups are going to work and how they're going to teach in those small groups. And don't get me started on the churches that have the pastor record something and then play it in their small groups. That pastors, check your heart on that one, as John Chris says. But the thing that confuses me is that, like the time I had in Tennessee, okay, let me use that as an example. The time I had in Nashville was very beneficial to me. I was running on empty and I needed a break. I needed to retreat. And usually when you hear the word retreat, you think of a curriculum that's going to come with it, a guest speaker, and all of these things. And really, you know what? That didn't happen. It didn't happen at all. And yet I came back more refreshed than I ever have and I've been to a lot of church conferences before. Because the reason for that is that there was good conversation. We were friends getting together, and I'm really good friends with Pastor Bob Beeman, and we just talked. We just had good conversation. We didn't say, okay, let's open up our Bible study guide too, or anything like that. And we didn't open our a self-help book or anything like that. Let me just throw this out there. If self-help books help so much, then why do people keep buying them? I'm just saying. And so we had this time where we just enjoyed conversation. It was all culminated on Sunday afternoon when a lot of sanctuary folks got together and converged on Pastor Bob's house for a cookout. And the conversation was fantastic. It was meaningful. I had good conversation with many of my friends, and we talked about the things of the Lord. Now, isn't that true when we get together as Christians that things just seem to take a bend towards the things of God? Oh, I assume, and I've been a part of them where sometimes conversations bend towards the Marvel comic universe or X-Men or whatever, the case may be. And that's okay. I mean, just the fact of being together is so very important. And so churches that overthink this, they usually end up spending way too much money on it as well. Because all of the, all of the Bible studies that I've been a part of, they've been mediocre at best. They've been okay. But I never walked away from there saying, wow, that was a refreshing time. It's usually, meh, it was all right. I've learned a few things. And quite honestly, a lot of things that get flagged as discipleship really are nothing more than teaching, and there's no discipleship involved. And so I would challenge churches, I would challenge pastors that are struggling to find the next greatest Bible study or the next greatest discipleship series to put it on hold. Set it aside, save your budget, and just plan on getting together and fellowshipping with one another. It's that simple, really. If you read the New Testament, it was that simple. They got together, they broke bread, and they did the latest Beth Moore series. No, that's not what it says. They got together, they broke bread, had conversation, there was prayer, and that's it. That's all it was. And people enjoyed it so much. People absolutely loved it because the church was growing exponentially at the time. I have never once came out of a Bible study, and I even use that term loosely because a lot of these Bible studies, they're not Bible studies. They're self-help. They're life application stuff. But I come out of those and I'm thinking, all right, so we met, good. But you know what? When I get together with friends, our men's group or our Wednesday morning breakfast group that we get together, I find that way more invigorating and actually quite delightful as well, because we just have conversation about whatever is on the table and we talk about anything and everything. For those of you that are watching and you don't believe it, try it sometime. Just literally try it sometime. Just plan an event and throw the Bible study aside, throw that discipleship series aside, and just enjoy conversation and see where it goes. I can tell you, and I could point out 40 other people that were at this picnic on Sunday that would admit that coming out of those times of conversation are far more important to the growth of a Christian life than a Bible study curriculum will ever be. So if you have any thoughts or questions, send it over to outlawpulpit@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Have an awesome week.